things about the Beatles, right? My response was always, why don't you ask the Beatles? You know, they know far more about themselves than I do, you know? And that's really still my attitude today. Still my attitude today.
Are you going to write your memoirs?
I'm not a writer. I'm not a writer, and I can't really remember. Too much has happened, you know. But maybe one day, who knows? You know, I don't know what the future holds. But right now, I'm not thinking about doing that.
No. The same question for Mr. Taylor and Mr. Aspinall. Do you remember Holland, June '64?
Yes.
What do you remember of it?
What I remember of it, especially with Derek,
Blocker.
was that between the two shows, there must have been about 4 or 5 hours between the two shows.
Yeah.
And just sitting backstage in the dressing room, it became, you know, quite tense, just because the Beatles were always trapped, you know, so they couldn't sort of get out, and so Derek started telling jokes, and I can still remember some of those jokes now, actually. And then Derek and I left the dressing room and went outside, actually, to I don't know what it was.
We sat by the roadside. We sat by the roadside, didn't we?
And had a glass of water.
Yeah, we did.
And the trip by boat through the canals in Amsterdam. Do you remember?
Yes, I remember that. I remember that. That was quite hectic. You had to keep. You got so involved with looking at the crowds and what was happening and people jumping in the water that occasionally people had to tell you to mind your heads as you were going under the bridges. It was a little bit dangerous at times, you know.
It was at the height of Beatlemania. It was a very good visit.
Yeah.
But there were about 6 hours between those two concerts, and there was and also some unauthorized filming was going on. I think the show had to stop because of that. Get those cameras out.
There is one little anecdote from that trip on the canals in Holland that I think John and Paul or somebody spotted a couple of students walking along the bank with those capes on. Right, yeah.
That's
the
photo about capes,
that we got. We found them somewhere in Amsterdam and then got them copied in Hong Kong, and they were the capes that were used in Help.
Yeah. Yeah, that was my question. Do you remember that? Another during the.
I remember. I've still got the cape.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And during the TV show, all the audience was around the Beatles. Do you remember? At the end of the TV show, they all going to twist around the Beatles and to dance.
No, I don't remember that. Oh. I don't know.
No.
You wouldn't remember it, would you?
Well, I remember. I was 7 years.
You were 7?
Yeah, yeah. Mr. Martin, when you asked John and Paul to come with a song for Our World, John came with All You Need Is Love, but which song did Paul suggest?
He didn't.
No, really?
As far as I remember, All You Need Is Love was the only one considered. I mean, John had this song cooking anyway, before the proposal for the programme came up, and it so happened to fit the idea brilliantly.
Yeah.
And we developed it from there. And Paul worked with him on it.
Yeah. Did you know the harmonica on Love Me Do was stolen in Holland by John in Arnhem?
I didn't know that.
No? You, Miss Aspinall?
Well, I didn't understand the question.
Talk about the harmonica used by John.
Was stolen?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
No.
I knew it got lost somewhere.
Yes, in Arnhem.
It had been stolen.
Yeah. Mr. Martin, is it true that Because is an original Beethoven melody?
That Because is original Beethoven? No, no. If you think the Moonlight Sonata and Because are similar, they're arpeggios, but the chord structure is quite different. I mean, there was an inspiration, if you like, because John heard the Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata and thought that was rather nice, the way the arpeggios worked, and played around himself on his guitar and created the actual backing that we laid down. But if you actually link it to Beethoven, it is quite different.
Yeah, yeah.
And of course, the tune that goes on top is completely original.
Yeah. Is it true that a score from Bernard Herrmann, made here in Studio One,
It's called
A score, film score. Bernard Herrmann recorded here film score, Fahrenheit 451. That was your inspiration for
no.
Eleanor Rigby.
Yeah. No, I mean, like you get asked questions through the years by journalists, and you sometimes come up with some glib answers, and they stick with you for the rest of your life. I was asked about Eleanor Rigby, and I once said, which is quite true, that the style of scoring, as far as I was concerned, was to a certain extent influenced by Bernard Herrmann's writing, that he had a very spiky way of writing the strings. And in particular, the string work he did on Fahrenheit 451 is an example of that. He also did a lot of synthesizer work on that. But he didn't record it here, he recorded it in America. I was a great admirer of Herrmann's style of writing. It was excellent. And that was just it. But of course, Eleanor Rigby, the score for Eleanor Rigby, was very much Paul's composition, you know, the song itself. And he thought a lot in terms of orchestral writing too. He couldn't write orchestral music, but he had an imagination which fitted in with what I was doing. And he actually, you know, we sat down at the piano, we worked out how the score should sound before I wrote it.
Yeah. Will there be the famous long version of Helter Skelter on the anthology CD, the long version of Helter Skelter? Will that be
Of
Helter Skelter? Helter Skelter?
Skelter.
Yeah.
No.
No?
If you want it, I'll issue it as a special one for you.
Why not? It's
about 14 minutes, 15 minutes long.
yeah.
I think it gets boring. You know, I think in making these records, my consideration has been to put in works that are interesting to the majority of people, not to Beatle fanatics. And I have to look at the public as a broad, interesting thing. And I don't want to put in anything that people are going to say, I wonder when this is going to finish, you know.
Yeah.
And that's what that would do. Now, there are the hardcore Beatle fanatics who would love to have this, but this
Probably
album,
have it,
they already have it on bootleg.
do they?
Yeah.
I would assume
Really?
so.
Ah.
Well, I would assume so. It's all out there.
He doesn't.
You were in Switzerland when John composed Norwegian Woods.
We were
What-
together in the Palace Hotel, St. Moritz.
Yes. What do you remember of that?
A broken ankle.
I remember breaking my foot, yes, absolutely. And I remember going up, and everyone thought we were having a rave time, and in fact, we'd gone back to our little suite and we were drinking Horlicks and playing Monopoly. My memories were very happy at that time. Although, funnily enough, of course, when you look at the lyrics now, and you think of, I once had a girl, or should I say, she once had me, you wonder about John and Sin. But it was a happy time, and John would often sing this song, you know, when we were sitting there, just stringing away on his guitar, and I've got very fond memories of that.
Pete Shotton told in an interview that it was a true story.
The what?
It was a true story of a girl with John, and
I don't know.
you don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's quite possible.
Yeah, yeah. 8 years ago, you wrote an unreleased song, "Return to Pepperland." Had that something to do with Yellow Submarine?
I wrote,
"Return to Pepperland." Oh.
did I?
Yes.
I don't remember it.
No, you.
I wrote Pepperland originally, which is in the Yellow Submarine, but I don't think I wrote Return. Well, perhaps I should do.
Yeah. What do you remember of the very first time John came to you with Strawberry Fields?
Well, I can't remember, you know, all I can remember about John is quite often and Paul, whenever they had a new song, they would come and sing it to me, and my memory is of John standing in front of me. He always used to stand with his guitar quite high up on his chest as he used to play, and I would generally sit on a high stool, a bass stool that we had in the studio, and listen to it and learn it, and I would probably go over to the piano and finger a few chords to make sure I understood the chordal structure before we started working on it. But the memories always with John was how beautiful he sang and how beautifully he played. And it was always a frustration for me that he never really liked his voice. And I thought his voice was wonderful. Still do. And I think his voice was great. And a lot of those early solo things from him